Welcome to Becoming Her podcast, the space where women heal, grow, rebuild, and become the woman they always created to be. I'm your
Mm.
host, Leslie Ann Jerome, author, speaker, educator, and woman empowerment coach. And today's conversation is going to touch hearts deeply. Joining us is the incredible Malaysia Harrell, a board certified psychotherapist, spiritual transformation coach, award winning entrepreneur, veteran, keynote speaker, and author. And her voice has impacted countless women through healing, emotional wellness, faith, mindset transformation, and purpose driven living. And in a world where so many women are silently carrying pain, trauma, pressure, and emotional exhaustion, this conversation is a reminder that healing is possible, growth is possible, and becoming is possible. So, whether you're rebuilding, rediscovering yourself, or healing from heartbreak, overcoming fear, or simply trying to find your way again, this episode is for you. Malaysia, welcome to the Becoming Her podcast. We are so
Thank
honored.
you.
We are so honored to have you here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leslie Ann. I'm just so happy that we had an opportunity to come together, and I'm just honored and blessed to witness the work that you're doing to help women heal.
Thank you so much. And I'm so
Yeah,
honored to have met you. You have such an incredible, history and bio. I'm so amazed. And
thank
the
you.
TEDx, I was like, oh my gosh, that is amazing.
Thank you.
So, at what point in your own healing did you realize you were no longer just surviving, but truly becoming?
Oh, that's a good one, Leslie Ann, because I think the shift happened really when I stopped asking myself, how do I get back to who I was, right? And started asking myself, who am I really becoming now? Because for a long time, survival was actually my identity. I grew up in a lot of childhood trauma, even before, I had trauma as an adult. And I felt like I was always functioning, performing, and looking at what was that next best thing? How can I get to that highest level of success? And that was what, society deemed a success, not what God deems a success. And I always felt like I was helping other people instead of helping myself. And so inside, I was really exhausted. My body was breaking down, and I ended up having, a near-death experience, which led to 9 surgeries, chronic illness, oral chemo, rising up to 254 pounds as a result of the medication. And genuinely, I didn't know if I would survive physically or emotionally. And when you are faced with your own mortality, your priorities just change. And I realized, that I was no longer just surviving, when I stopped measuring my worth by productivity, by what society deems as successful. And I just started honoring peace and alignment and rest and authenticity. And that was the moment when I, became on this journey, of becoming. And I knew that there was an art to it too, because some people feel like, oh, when am I going to get to the point at that when I reach my peak, when I reach the mountaintop? But when you realize that it's an art to becoming, and not that, oh, I've made it, I've healed. And, I think it's important to stop abandoning ourselves in order to be accepted by other people.
Hmm. Yes, I can relate because I've the same similar journey. I
Yeah,
started the same journey as well, and I had to find myself because I also experienced a near-death experience. So I can relate to what you are saying.
yeah.
Yes. And what was the hardest truth you had to face about yourself, while healing from both emotional trauma and that physical illness?
Ooh, I think the hardest truth was realizing how much my success had been fueled by survival, by trauma, and by the need for validation.
Mhm.
As I said, as a child, I learned very early that achievement brought me praise, brought
Mm.
me accolades, brought me attention, and brought me a sense of safety because that's something that I didn't get at home.
Right.
So I became, you always hear about the need for excellence,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And being exceptional, and so I became such a high achiever and a leader in many senses. Even as a young adult, I was a leader in my community. And I was always the strong one. I had to raise my sisters, right? My mom wasn't able to do that. She really struggled with mental illness. But underneath that little girl who was just this beast, she was this raging fire, who felt unseen. I was just really emotionally unsafe. And I guess I didn't realize that, because I was such a beast.
Yes.
And I had to confront the reality that I was using performance to compensate for the pain.
Hmm.
And I think that was the most challenging for me because eventually, when my body started to reflect that, when my nervous system began to fail, and I just realized that I had been carrying that for years. I didn't know. I just thought this is how life is, right? Living on the edge, hyper vigilance, like just craving that, needing
Yeah.
that, having a sense of identity of perfectionism, right? And I think that that truth really humbled me deeply because it really forced me to realize that healing wasn't about becoming more impressive,
Hmm.
but it was becoming more honest.
Yeah, I love it. And I could hug you right now because I feel like I experienced the same thing, that emotional
Yeah.
trauma, losing my mom at 10 when I was 10
Mm,
and, going through that same thing, a
yeah.
rebel, depression, suicide. I can relate to what you're saying, and
Yeah.
now I can see myself, healed. But then looking back at that little girl, it's like, yeah, she really had a hard time. But
Yeah.
well, there's so many women are still struggling here because they've
Yeah.
never gotten the help.
Yeah.
Yeah, but looking back, how do you believe those seasons of trauma and illness were shaping your assignments, even when it didn't feel like it at the time?
Yeah. Well, I want to answer that question, but I want to piggyback off of something that you just said about,
Yes.
women and your inner child. And, here's the thing, as an adult, your inner child is still there,
Mm.
right? And so now we have this opportunity that presents itself to say, you know what? That little girl, that little Leslie Ann, she's with me.
Oh,
And healing the adult Leslie Ann is about releasing, keeping her in this little closet and pen to keep her safe, which is keeping her caged, but allowing ourselves to release our inner child
yeah.
and inner children to say, you know what? She's with me right now. What would little Leslie Ann want to do?
Mm.
And honoring her, not keeping her like, oh, I got to keep her safe
Yeah,
from all the trauma and all the stuff in this
correct.
crazy world, but saying, you know what, I'm going to keep her safe. She's with me, but let allow her to be free
Agree.
and think about the things that she loved to do when she was little.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll start to do some of that now with her.
Mm.
She's still with you.
I love
I
that.
just
I
wanted to
love
answer
that.
that.
That's amazing. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, look, as I said before, how do you believe those seasons of trauma and illness were shaping your assignment, even when
Yeah.
you feel like it at that time?
Yeah. Um, Looking back now, again, when you look back, right, you have to look back
Yeah.
to be able to think about moving forward. But I realized that my pain was actually expanding my capacity for empathy, also for discernment,
Right.
compassion, and truth, because again, I was this get it done. And I was compassionate, but I don't think the highest level of empathy was there because again we have these defense mechanisms that protect us from
Yeah.
harm and from pain and we don't want to feel that, but
Yeah.
I think it actually opens us up, but still having that level of discernment to say,
Yeah.
okay, this is what is healthy, this is
Yes.
what's not,
Yes.
and I'm able to identify that and hold myself accountable, right, to protecting myself
Yeah.
still, right, without being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And those seasons that strip me of that illusion, really forced me to stop hiding behind achievement and confront my level of humanity,
Yes.
right? Again, I had mentioned the word beast. That's what I say. I'm a beast. And I would not be able to really sit here with you, with other women that are in their grief who are also experiencing burnout, they're experiencing trauma, identity loss, especially at a certain age, and always thinking about what didn't I do that I always wanted to do, and I gave
Yeah.
myself up for my family and my children and everybody else, my partners, and looking at healing journeys the way that I do now, as if, I haven't walked, I've been able to walk through it myself. So
Yes.
again, that level of empathy is really high now because I've not just been this therapist helping other people, but I've been able to, really analyze and identify my own trauma
Yes.
and be authentic about it. And, what happened was my illness really slowed me down enough
Mm.
so that I could hear from myself, I could hear from God. And my trauma taught me how deeply people can suffer silently
Yes.
while appearing successful on the outside. Like, I think us as women, you talked about that, we do that a lot.
Mm.
And, what felt like destruction at that time was actually preparing me for a higher assignment that my human mind could not even conceptualize. And I often tell people your breaking point may actually be your awakening point.
Yes.
This is the point that says, you know what? There's something that's bigger for you that is not associated with your identity or money or any of those things.
Yes, I love that. And
Yeah.
right now, a lot of women are experiencing that period where they are stuck emotionally.
Yes.
In your experience, what keeps women emotionally stuck the longest? Fear, identity, or familiarity? Or both? What do you?
Mm. This is a good one because it could be all of them,
Yeah.
depending on the person, right? But for me personally, I think it was identity,
Hmm.
right? I didn't identify with fear. Of course, the fear was there, but I didn't deal with that,
Yeah.
right? Because even when the pain hurts, familiar pain feels safer than the unknown,
Yeah.
right? So many women are not addicted to their suffering. They're attached to their identities that they've created, right? While they were in survival mode,
Yeah.
right? The strong one, the caretaker, the perfectionist, the achiever. Many of us are the people who've been put in these places to be the martyr of our family,
Yes.
right? Even as children, that sense of childhood was taken away at a very young age. We were cooking, we were cleaning, we were raising our families, right? And healing requires grieving of those identities.
Yes.
And that's the terrifying part because if you no longer perform the role you've always played, you have to ask yourself,
Hmm.
who am I now?
Oh,
Who am I now? Do I even know who I
yeah.
am? And that's why so many women remain
Yes.
emotionally stuck because
Exactly.
they lack strength, because the unfamiliar freedom, can feel more uncomfortable than their familiar dysfunction.
Correct. Correct. I love that. And I
Yeah.
know that the women who are listening to this podcast right now, they are saying, she's speaking to me. But one thing that I really love that you do, you mix that spiritual transformation in your clinical therapy. So tell me,
That's right.
yeah, how do you bridge the gap between, clinical therapy and spiritual transformation without one diminishing the other?
Hmm. I think they really go hand in
And
hand. I don't think they're, I mean, I'm just blessed to have both, right? But again, I think I was probably a therapist when I was a little girl. You know what I mean? And so I don't think that one is independent of the other. I think that everybody's journey is different. And I feel like my spiritual acumen and capacity was built when I was a little girl because I had the gift of dreams, and my mom
Mm,
always said I had the gift of dreams.
mhm.
And what I realized in my clinical practice is that it was like we were on a hamster wheel,
Mm,
right? How many of us get in these relationships and you say, I'm being mistreated, and you turn around and you get in the exact same relationship with
correct.
a different person? Or you're in a job or a career and you have those same issues and you move to another job. Oh, new me, new year. And the exact same thing happens. So I said to myself, why is this happening?
Yeah.
And then again, when I faced my own mortality, when I had these questions for God, it was, am I doing my work or
Mm,
am I doing God's work?
mm,
The work that God has for me to do. And that's when that light bulb went off to say, how do I get in alignment with
yeah.
my divine assignment? And God said, if people are not doing what they are called to do, it doesn't matter how much
Yeah.
money you make, you're going to struggle. How many people do you know are millionaires,
Yeah.
multi six figures? And they're on social media and I'm popping, I'm coming out with this Lamborghini, and they're miserable.
Yes.
Every day they're getting a new treatment,
Mm,
trying to change their appearance.
mm, mm.
Think about that.
Yeah.
So I don't think for me, when I decided to embrace what
Yeah.
my true calling was, all of the things that I struggled with started to, it's like a spiritual decluttering
Yeah.
started to happen. So I really blend that together,
Yeah.
with high achieving women
Yeah.
who identify like we do, right? Because most of us will never tell anyone
Mm,
that we're struggling,
yeah.
but I'm able to tell,
Yeah.
right? I have this gift that says, okay, you know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
and it was funny because even when I was in the military, people would come to me in therapy and it would be like 3 sessions in, and I'd be like, this is not
Wow.
why you're here. In my head, I didn't, and so I would work to get that camaraderie,
Mm,
that level of authenticity,
yeah.
that level of safety to really get out the true, because no one wants to say I'm struggling. So I
Correct.
think they really go hand in hand.
Yes, I love that. You know, as you said, struggling. Another one, good one is that they struggle with the internal belief mindsets is something that they struggle a lot. So,
Mhm.
if a woman could only change one internal belief that would completely shift her life, what would you tell her to change?
Ooh, um, this is really good. I would want her to stop believing that her worth must be earned through suffering, performance, and
I
sacrifice.
love that. Mm,
Because, especially in many communities of color, that is what we're taught. We're taught to be fierce. And I understand why, because the world will eat you apart
correct.
if you're not taught that. But so many women believe that they have to exhaust themselves to deserve love, to
Correct.
deserve rest, success, visibility, or belonging, right? I have to appear this way.
Yes.
And so that belief comes from women overworking, over giving, overachieving, and abandoning who they truly are. Most women, and there have been people that I've seen who've said, I've gone to med school and I didn't become a doctor.
Yes.
I've gone to, and I went through law school and I didn't become a lawyer because they thought they had to do that. And what I would say to that woman is, the moment you realize that you're already worthy without constantly having to prove yourself
Yeah.
is when your entire life is going to begin to shift and you're going to feel it. That heavy burden that is on your back, you're going to feel a sense of release and you're going to be able to exhale.
Yes. And for me, it looks like freedom.
Mhm.
Yeah, but let's just talk about freedom as you said that. What does freedom actually look like in a woman's nervous system, not just her mindset, or circumstances when she decides to live
Oh,
and be free? What does that look like?
I think knowing what I know now and having my own experience, I would say freedom is peace.
Ah,
It's when your nervous system feels safe, right? Because you're always, on this high
yeah,
adrenaline rush. You're always, on 100, and it looks like being able to rest without guilt. When is the last time we've had a day where you absolutely did nothing,
hmm,
right?
yeah,
To be able to say no without being in a panic, right? Thinking, oh, I gotta say yes to this, or they're not going to talk to me, or I'm going to miss out on this, or I'm going to feel bad that I'm not having the compassion. And to exist without constantly scanning for danger, rejection, and or disappointment. And
yeah,
many women, they seem to appear successful externally,
yes,
but again, their nervous system remains on survival mode. And that really is what's causing a lot of the medical conditions, the heart conditions, especially with women of
yeah,
color. And we don't realize that. So, you know what? Society says, oh, it looks
yeah,
okay if your health is down, but if you say something about mental health, you can't do that, right?
correct.
And so true freedom is really when your body no longer feels like it has to embrace for impact all the time, right? It's when peace becomes familiar
Yes,
instead of always dealing in chaos.
yes, love that. Excellent. This is an amazing podcast. What do you think? Yeah, I love this. So,
Yes, I hope so. I think
yeah,
so. I mean,
it is
just the
amazing.
dynamic and
Yeah,
the level of alignment that we have with
yeah,
our own lives, I
yeah,
just think is so important. And I'm so
yeah,
glad that you're using this to
yeah,
amplify the voices of other women so
yes,
people can know that we're not alone.
yes. And I know that you are building something big. So tell me, what kind of legacy are you intentionally building at this time in your
Ooh.
life? What are you doing? Where?
Yeah. Well, I'm building, a legacy where, healing, authenticity, and aligned success become normalized,
Hmm,
right? Alignment, that is the biggest thing. And especially again for high achieving women who spent years hiding behind performance, hiding behind the mask that we wear every day. I know I can recall there were times when I had these high powered jobs,
hmm.
right? So I was highly decorated. I'm out there and I'm crying in my car every day,
Wow, wow.
either when I get home or I'm before I go to work,
Yeah,
right? So I want people, and especially those high achieving women, to know that they don't have to lose themselves in order to be successful.
I love that.
And with Blissful Life Consulting, it's not just about therapy or coaching, it's about helping people return to themselves, right? And
Yeah,
have that identity that has been called by God. What
yeah.
I say is that everyone should have really what's called a ministry, whether you are religious or not.
I agree.
If you're in alignment, it's a ministry. So if you are selling candles, you have a business that is selling fragrances, or you are selling t-shirts, that is your ministry. How do you honor your calling through giving peace, through
Yes.
giving safety, through giving love, through giving joy to other people?
Mm,
People may not experience God, but they're going to experience love through what you're doing, and it's about creating spaces where people feel emotionally safe enough to heal authentically and honestly. And so I believe my legacy is not just impact, but it's about transformation with integrity.
I love that. Well said, well said. And
Thank
for the
you.
women who are listening, what would you share with them? What message would you tell them at this time? I mean, you shared so many things, but one last thing
Yeah.
you would say.
Ooh, don't wait.
Yeah. Oh, I love.
Stop waiting until you fully feel healed to begin your life, right? Because we've struggled with this level of perfectionism, you think I have to wait until I've done this, I've accomplished that, my children are in school, whatever that is. And so I also want people to know that healing is not a journey. I mean, it's a journey. It's not like a finish line,
Mm.
right? Like, oh, when it's time for you to cross over to that next realm of life, right? That is when your journey ends.
Oh, I
So
love
until then, you don't need to have everything figured out before you decide to move forward for you and your life authentically. And please understand that the version of you that survived deserves compassion,
Hmm.
right? You don't have to be in this high level position forever. I actually love now that I get a chance to just have time with myself to learn who I am now. And just always know that there's a version of you that's waiting, right? Waiting for peace, alignment, truth, softness. Again, we've had to be so tough.
Hmm.
We're carrying the armor of God every day, right?
Yes.
But that is why you have that shield, not the shield of masking yourself to appear something that you're not. But there is something that is protecting you every day that you go out. And when you embrace that and you follow your true purpose, you are going to be allowed to outgrow that level of survival that you've been carrying all these years. You're going to be allowed to choose you, and you're going to be allowed to become someone your younger self would really feel safe with.
Hmm. Amazing. What a powerful and meaningful conversation. I could spend hours talking to you.
Thank
That's what,
you.
and I'm talking to you and I'm just feeling your aura. You are doing such an amazing thing, amazing work. And I know that,
Thank
your
you.
your story, your impact is going to continue, moving across nations, states, countries.
Oh,
This is amazing. Yeah, you have a
I
lot.
received that. Thank you for speaking, such
Yes.
life into me
Yes.
because, again, it's not easy doing this work. It's easy to just sit on your couch and say,
Yes.
okay, I'm just going, but knowing that I've accepted this calling
Mhm.
to say, okay, God, I've surrendered. What do you have for me? Be careful what you ask for because you have to be obedient to that calling.
Correct.
And
Correct.
you will start to struggle when you don't do it. So I also need to be fed into. So you have
Yes.
truly fed into me today. And I am
Yes.
just so blessed to
Yes.
have encountered you.
Thank you so much. And I'm telling you, don't give up. You are already leading us. You're showing us what it looks like when you do the correct thing, when you be obedient and you have faith and you follow what God says. You are actually leading the way,
Thank
and I'm
you.
smiling because I did exactly what you said. So I'm happy, I
Yes.
yeah, I feel happy like, oh yes, everything she's saying, I did it.
Well,
Thankfully.
it's a process. You're
Yes.
still doing it, right?
Yes,
It's not like,
correct.
oh, I did all that. It's an
Yes,
art, the art of
correct.
becoming.
Yes, it is. It is. So, Malaysia, thank you so much for joining us on Becoming Her podcast and for sharing your wisdom, your journey, and your heart with us today. I truly believe this conversation will help so many women, myself,
Mhm.
who are navigating healing, purpose, identity, and transformation. Not just the
Yes.
Caribbean and in Trinidad and Tobago, but globally. And to every woman listening today, I want you to remember this. You are not behind and you are not forgotten, and your healing journey still matters. Just exactly what Malaysia says. Give yourself permission to grow, to rest, to rebuild, and to become. So, thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Becoming Her podcast. And don't forget to subscribe and share this episode. Thank you so much, everyone.